There's two ways to get to know a horror fan's taste in movies. The first one is obviously to get them talking about their favourite movies, which is a video that I did here on my channel back in November. But the second way is to get them talking about the movies that they actively hate. If you aren't new here, you'll already know that my 5-star ratings and my 1-star ratings are both incredibly rare, and when it comes to movies that I don't like, I will always try and find something redeemable about them so that I don't end up giving them a 1-star review. Now, I understand that there are going to be people out there that also love these movies that I'm about to mention, and I love that for you because every single movie is someone's favourite movie. These ones just weren't for me, and I'm gonna give you reasons to exactly why. If you're new here, I go by Hordes, and if you're not new, welcome back. I talk about horror movies here on my channel on Mondays and Fridays, so if that sounds like something you would be interested in, maybe hit that subscribe button down below and join the Horde. And without further ado, here are 8 horror movies that I rated 1 star or less. The Farm from 2018 is a cannibal horror. While on a road trip, a couple decides to stop at a diner. Little do they know that ordering a hamburger will have terrible consequences. Their journey soon becomes a harrowing story of survival as they are kidnapped by local farmers. On their farm, humans are the main dish. I reviewed this one very early on when I first started my channel. We're talking the first kind of 4 months early into my channel. And I hated this movie so much. I will leave a link to the full video if you just want to hear me tear this one to pieces. But I understand the message of this one is supposed to be that the meat and dairy industry are bad, but they've just not done a good job of putting this message across. I saw somebody online previously describe this as if vegans decided to make a horror movie. And as somebody who is the most non-preachy vegan that you will ever come across, we don't claim this movie because this is a train wreck. Not even PETA, the animal cruelty company, would claim this. There is some weird dialogue choices in this, and I don't mean weird as in, oh, this character is slightly crazy and we shouldn't trust this character. Like, I just mean they are weird for the sake of being weird, and in an already weak plot, it makes it even worse. Like, the first 25 minutes of this movie, nothing happens, and it's only an hour and 20-minute movie. At this point, we then end up at the farm, and it decides to become a horror movie for all of about 2 minutes. The man in the pig mask in his lovely bin bag cape, but it's very clearly a bin bag with holes punched in it. I don't need to spend so much of the movie following him around where you've forgotten to actually write parts of the script. He feels like he's there for padding. Like, something will happen, and then you'll follow pighead man in his bin bag cape to the next scene. Like, no, it feels like part of the script is missing, or that they were too lazy to actually write it in the first place. It is also not gone over my head that the 2 main actors in this, their characters have the exact same name. And those 2 people are also involved in the directing and production of this movie as well. Like, could this movie have been great? Yes, because it's got that message there. Do I think that it is very poor writing and direction from the creative team behind it as to why this movie is so terrible? Yes, and I think that if somebody sat down and tried to do this concept again and just went full on like, gory, gritty, meat and dairy industry is bad that you already know, but we're going to do it with people and do it properly, it would be stellar. I'll even volunteer to write the damn thing if that's what it takes.
Stop it. Get some help.
Undead Pool from 2007 is a Japanese zombie action horror. Aki persuades her new friend Sayaka to join the school swim team at the same time as a mysterious virus is threading through the school. After Aki discovers an accident and tries to tell other people she is bitten, the swim team takes up the challenge to cope with what has happened and begins a fierce battle against students and teachers. The description of this movie could not have prepared me for the brain rot that is Undead Pool / Attack Girls Swim Team versus the Undead, because if you heard that description and thought, oh, it's going to be a zombie outbreak in a school, like I did, you would be so wrong, so incredibly wrong with what you thought it was going to be. The zombies in this movie But after about 20 minutes, they disappear and they get replaced by a man with a hypno flute who decides to have SA interactions with so many minors in this movie. It is not even funny. The thing with the zombies, though, is are they killed off by the swim team? No, the writer just decides to stop writing them into the plot. That is just, they just disappear 20 minutes into the movie and get replaced by the man with the hypno flute. And Japanese movies are known for their problematic things that they like to include. But this is a whole new level. Like, this is a spicy softcore movie that I was not expecting to be a spicy, like, softcore movie. We're talking, you have zombies in this that would not be out of place in the sadness. They're like your S&M liking zombies. And then they just disappear. Like, could I have expected the movie to go the direction that it did? No. Was I expecting a relationship between sisters in this? No, it wasn't. Like, we're talking underground spy cults. This movie is wild and terrible. The best way I can describe this is it's a horror short sandwiched between a spicy dream that the director had one day that should have been shared with the therapist, and only a therapist who would have suddenly had serious concerns about this director, or it should have just stayed a dream. Like, the rest of us, we didn't need to be let in on this.
I want you to think about what you've done.
The Bad Batch from 2016 is not a cannibal romance horror. Arlen is sent to a fenced-off wasteland where undesirables are exiled to when she is kidnapped by a group of cannibals led by Miami Man. After escaping, she finds her way to the Dream, but as she adjusts to life in the Bad Batch, Arlen discovers that being good and bad mostly depends on who's standing next to you. Apologies if you can hear snorting at this point. I have been joined by my French bulldog, who is being a little bit needy today. But this is not a horror movie. I will die on this hill. This movie lied to me. It decided that it was going to include one of my buzzwords, which is cannibals. And you know when the cannibals are actually in this movie? The first 10 minutes. And then they vanish. And they're not even in the first 5 of those 10 minutes. So is it a cannibal movie? No, it's a liar. When your script is lacking substance, and you still decide to make it 2 hours long, that is called self-indulgence, because the person that wrote this is also the person that directed it. And I guarantee if you took all of the actual spoken dialogue in this movie and condensed it down, it would be like 3 sides of paper. Not even double-sided, single-sided. The rest in this is just crap, as like ASMR in a desert kind of noises. And then Burning Man gets thrown in at one point, but with way more neon lights and less fire. Like, that is the best way I can describe The Bad Batch to you. This movie as well had a $6 million budget, and they actually used ghost town locations in this. So unless they were purchasing like broken plane parts to put everywhere, I have no idea how they managed to spend $6 million on this movie. I am hoping that Suki Waterhouse, Jason Momoa, Keanu Reeves and Jim Carrey, that they are the reason that this movie cost $6 million, because if they didn't get some like serious chunky paychecks from this movie, I am so sorry. Like, it was not worth putting your name to this project. Also, Suki Waterhouse wears a pair of shorts in this that came from Urban Outfitters, because I remember at the time when this movie came out, those shorts were like the viral thing to have in the summer, and everybody online was doing DIY versions of how to make those exact shorts. And Jason Momoa's fake tattoos in this are clearly Sharpie, because the sweatier that he gets in this movie, the more streaky his tattoos become. Like, it's obvious that they have been done in pen.
You lied to me.
Arena Wars from 2024 is a death game horror. In 2025, convicted criminals have the opportunity to compete on the world's #1 televised sporting event, Arena Wars, where they must survive 7 rooms and 7 of the most vicious killers in the country. If they win, they regain their freedom. There were a few movies in 2024 that I gave 1 star to, but I'm mentioning this one because this one kind of felt a little bit more personal than the others, because if you aren't new here, you'll already know I am a massive fan of death game horror movies, and I will watch anything from the biggest of big budgets to the tiniest of micro budgets, and Arena Wars is a death game movie made by somebody who does not understand the basic premise of how a death game movie works. In a death game movie, you should never be able to look at a game and how it plays and see that there are consistencies. This means that only the strongest, the smartest, or the most devious of players should be able to make it all the way to the end. The idea is not just anybody could enter into a death game and win. Now, this is where Arena Wars trips up, because you actually see 2 groups of inmates take part in this. Room 1 has the same killer in it each time. Room 2 has the same killer in it each time. Room 3 has the same killer in it each time, which tells you that every single time Arena Wars is played, it's going to be the same person in every single room, which is a massive flaw in how death games should work. The killers in this should also have been a huge selling point, and they were actually garbage. Besides Cutie Pie, because she is pink, they are all the same. Like, killer number 4 is just killer number 2, but wearing a balaclava. Like, they are so interchangeable. It's like they had somebody dressed as one killer, they walked off set, put on a different hat, and came back and was like, now I'm somebody else now. No. According to the marketing in this one as well, there are supposed to be 7 killers in 7 rooms. But when you actually count the number of killers that you encounter within the arena, there is only 6 of them, because the 7th one never actually sets foot into the arena. So I'm calling it out and saying that the marketing for this movie is a lie. And Luke in this, who is our main character, if you have ever seen The Condemned with Stone Cold Steve Austin, Luke is just a Temu version of Stone Cold Steve Austin's character from The Condemned. Backstory is just copy and paste.
I don't understand, bitch. Don't understand.
Silent Hill Revelation from 2012 is a supernatural video game horror adaptation. When her adopted father disappears, Sharon De Silva is drawn into a strange and terrifying alternate reality that holds the answers to the horrific nightmares that have plagued her since childhood, a demonic place known as Silent Hill. Adaptations are always going to be divisive, and Silent Hill happens to hold a very special place in my heart, particularly Silent Hill 1 through to Silent Hill 4, The Room. When I first played Silent Hill, I was way too young and it was on a PS1 demo disc, and it scared the hell out of me. And then I avoided the Silent Hill franchise at all costs until I actually watched the first movie, which then inspired me to go back and play 1 through 4. The director changed a few things with the first movie that were completely unnecessary. Like, his words, not mine, he didn't think that fans would believe a dad would go through all of that for their child, which is why he swapped Henry with Rose. Which, if you've played the game, you'll already know, Henry literally does go through everything that Rose does, so what does somebody's gender have to do with it if they love their kids? But the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the changes that they made for Silent Hill Revelation from Silent Hill 3 make no sense whatsoever if you are familiar with the world of Silent Hill. Let me explain. If you didn't know, Silent Hill Revelation is actually an adaptation of Silent Hill 3. Silent Hill 3 takes place years down the line from the original events of Silent Hill 1. Now, this movie tells me that the people who created this movie either had no knowledge of the lore for Silent Hill or had no regards for anything to do with the lore from Silent Hill and just decided to include a bunch of things that had become iconic or synonymous within the franchise. All the changes within this movie didn't need to be changed. The plot of Silent Hill 3 would have made perfect sense just simply translating it to film. They did not need to go with the direction that they went for in this. And an inclusion of one particular character in this just confirms that I'm correct, that they just decided to disregard the lore and go for what was popular. This is also the issue that I had with the first movie, and that is the fact that they decided to include the character of Pyramid Head, because if you didn't know, Pyramid Head does not exist without the character of James Sunderland, who is the main character from Silent Hill 2, as Pyramid Head is a manifestation of James Sunderland's guilt and need for punishment. His entire character is about bringing judgment to James Sunderland. Now, to make it worse in this movie, they have taken a character whose entire purpose is to bring judgment on those who seek repentance. They had him help Heather Mason. And if you don't understand where I'm going with this, they gave Pyramid Head, a character who should not need this, a redemption arc. They tried to make him a good guy, when his sole purpose is to be the bad guy and bring pain and punishment.
I will never be good, and that's not bad.
House with 100 Eyes from 2013 is a found footage horror thriller. Ed and Susan appear to be a normal loving couple, however they are far from it. They are snuff filmmakers and want to make their first triple feature. In order to please their fans, they have rigged their entire house with cameras, but once things start rolling, Ed's plan unravels and it is all captured on tape. House of 100 Eyes is a combination of found footage that is either shot on like webcams or like steadicams, or is made to look like an interview kind of segment. But it is not the visual part of this movie that I have the issue with. My issue is that the audio in this is possibly the worst audio that I have ever come across in a horror movie. A pet peeve of mine is when sound goes from being ridiculously quiet to ears like piercing deafening in seconds. And that is what House of 100 Eyes is like. It's common for people who have anxiety like myself to also be sensitive to sounds. And this movie is a combination of statics, ear-piercing noises, white noise, garbled out, things to make it sound like it is a found footage that has been messed up. It's such a sensory overload, and in the worst way possible. You will spend the entire movie with your TV remote in hand turning the volume up and down and up and down, because at no point did anybody think we could do all of this stuff, but what if we just level it at the same time? Like, we would get rid of all of the problems of sensory overload. This could be the best movie in the world. It's not, by the way. But the audio in this just makes it completely unwatchable for me. I've only ever seen this movie once, and I am never going to subject myself to watching it again. And if you look at the reviews on this one for IMDb, it turns out that I am not the only person that has an issue with the audio in this, because I swear every single review that is on there mentions just how bad the audio is in this movie. Like, we can't all be wrong. Creep from 2004 is a slasher horror mystery. Kate falls asleep while waiting for a train on a platform in the London Underground. When she wakes up, she finds a vacant locked station. Things turn dangerous when she boards an empty train and heads into the unknown labyrinth of tunnels beneath the city streets. I know that there are fans of this one here in the Horde, but there was a time when this was my most hated horror movie of all time. And then I completely forgot why over the years, and then last year I subjected myself to watching Creep again. There is a full video for this one here on my channel where I just pulled it to pieces. And I remembered how much I hate the character of Kate in this movie. She is a badly tuned violin played with a hacksaw. That is how badly that she grates on me. She is vile and absolutely ruins this entire movie for me. There is one scene in particular in this that makes me want to push her under a train myself. At around the 25-30 minute mark, I want to say, Kate finds the character of Jimmy and Jimmy's girlfriend. They are both homeless and sleeping in a ventilation system within the London Underground, and she demands that he helps her find an escape. Not even politely. She is so rude to every single person that she comes across in this movie. Jimmy and his girlfriend have also got a little Jack Russell Terrier. It is very obvious that these three are all the other people have got in the world. Like, they are their entire world. But Jimmy decides that he will help Kate find a way out of the underground. A few minutes later, you see the little Jack Russell Terrier turn up covered in blood, and Jimmy goes back to help his girlfriend. Kate throws an actual bitch fit on the station platform, like, demanding him come back. How dare he leave? Sorry, random stranger who's done nothing but belittle and degrade me. Only person that I care about and knows that I exist in the world. Yep, that's a no-brainer. I think when you are rude to every single person that you come across, even if they're trying to help you, and you continue to be rude and vile to the next person that you come into contact with and the next person that you come into contact with, you deserve to be left on a train station platform. Find a way out yourself and stop being horrible to everybody else. The world doesn't owe you anything. Like, if one person had rightly stood up to her and told her to feck right off, it would have been an entirely different movie, because this woman's entitlement is like an influencer from nowadays, not from 2004. Like, it is off the scale. She's also one of those characters that is only alive at the end of the movie because every single other character dies trying to defend this woman for some reason. Like George in this movie deserves better. I'm saying that now. And the only reason that she made it all the way to the end is because a freak accident happens. If that hadn't happened, it would have been an entirely different movie. Would I have liked the movie more if she'd have died at the end? Yeah. Feed from 2005 is a crime body horror. Philip, an Interpol cop from Sydney, tracks a man in America suspected of force-feeding women to death on camera for the viewing pleasure of depraved internet users. Creep was my most hated horror movie of all time, and then I watched Feed from 2005, and if you think that I hate Kate from Creep, it is nothing compared to how much I hate Philip from this movie. Like, Phil is the literal kink police. That is his job. And why is an Australian cop meddling in America's business without permission? He just gets on a plane one day and goes to America, and all of a sudden there's a guitar riff that's like, it's America now. Like, this movie, it's issue after issue after issue for me. Like, Patrick is abusive to every single person that he comes into contact with. He is phobic of every person that he comes into contact with. Like, he body shames everyone. There's a scene around the 20-minute mark that's a spicy scene with his girlfriend, and it borders on SA, and she writes pig on his chest, and I can't blame her. Like, I wouldn't want to be with him. He's rotten to the core, and that is saying something, because there's a man in this feeding women to death. Phil is verbally abusive and phobic to every single body type that he comes in contact with, and then Michael, who is our feeder at one point in this, has a monologue where he slags off everybody who isn't morbidly obese. Like, between them, every single body type in this gets some kind of hate on them, whether you are athletic, you are thin, you are like small, mid-size, plus size, like wherever you fall in the spectrum. No, we don't like any of your bodies. It's all gross and it's all grim. They then try and claim that Michael's obsession is due to mummy issues and that he is mentally unstable. Yes, they go for the angle that you can't be into something unless you are literally insane, which is the most unhealthy attitude to have, like, when it comes to this movie makes me so mad. It's so mad, and I'm trying to not just go off on a rant about this movie, but dear God, this movie, I hate it. This is my most hated movie, and I could go on about it forever. Slight spoiler, in this movie, Phil finds Mike's location from asking Mike's sister. Now, Mike's sister is a curvy lady, we'll say, and at the end of the movie, you find out that Phil has decided to shack up with Mike's sister, and this left me with so many unanswered questions, like, is Phil getting more out of this than we think? Does he like watching Deirdre, the woman on camera, being fed? Like, is he secretly into this as well? This is never explained, and it just leaves so many more questions that I do not care to find the answers for. Like, this movie is just terrible. It's terrible. It's got a bad message about everything. Like, the kink shaming in this movie is something else. The body shaming in this is something else. The fact that a cannibal couple in this shows more of a loving relationship than anyone else should tell you that something is immediately off. Just, I'm not one to yuck someone's yum. I'm really not. As long as it's between consenting adults and no one is physically getting harmed, like, what's the problem?
You're a bad, bad man.
So there you have it, 8 horror movies that I gave 1 star or less, including my most hated movie of all time, which I shared right at the very end. If you would also like to share some movies that you think are an actual waste of time and that you hate, feel free, fill the comments section. We'll start a list of movies that we think everybody should avoid because they're terrible. If you would like to know where else you can find me, I am also over on Instagram and Letterboxd at HordesOfHorror, where I talk about every single horror movie that I watch, good or bad, not just the ones that I talk about here on YouTube. But speaking of YouTube, I'll be back on Monday, and this time it is back to my movies that I wanted to prioritise watching during the winter video. So this time we are going to the Arctic because we're going to be watching The Last Winter from 2006, because any horror movie with Ron Perlman in it instantly makes it just that little bit better. So until next time, bye.